Alrighty, folks, it looks like Redfin is at it again. Yes, Redfin is struggling. They just announced a 450 person layoff, but this one's focused. This is a part of the business that they're basically saying no mas. We are giving into a competitor. We're going to use a competitor's platform and we're going to dump the overhead of 450 folks. At least that's how I read it from the outside. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's go with Dana, the CEO of Hemlane. Dana, what did you think when you saw this and you saw it was a very focused hatchet job?
Yeah, great question. And to give everyone some background, we work very closely with both the Redfin Rentals team as well as the Zillow Rentals team. So we typically have monthly calls with them because it also just helps us get a good pace on what's going on in the market. And this type of consolidation of platforms working together and listing websites working together, I believe is going to continue. And part of the strategy that I think went on with Redfin here was, do we try to work against Zillow
Mhm.
or do we work with Zillow to be bigger and better? And what I mean by that is, I actually don't think that Redfin is as worried about Zillow as they are with CoStar, who owns apartments.com. And
Interesting.
so if you read the fine print of this 450 person layoff, it was their multifamily division.
Mhm.
So what you will see is multifamily housing, so apartments, is typically where all of these listing websites make their money. They
Okay.
know the small mom and pop will not pay big bucks for advertising.
Right.
If you look at the apartment complexes, they actually have a big budget to spend on advertising. And CoStar has been notorious for saying, we go after multifamily and we make quite a bit of money on it
Yeah. We're not
through.
distracted by the little guy.
Exactly. They go and really focus on multifamily. And so I think more recently, especially with the softening of the buy sell market with interest rates up, fewer properties in the past couple of years at least, fewer properties on market as the glory years, if I'd say, 2012 or 2011, all the way until
Yeah.
interest rates increased. What they've started to do is say, wait, we should focus on rentals because
Mm.
rentals, they're not as impacted. The day to day of property management and listing your rental is not as impacted as the buy sell market, because everyone needs a home and the number of rental properties will continue to increase. And so, what I believe this is Redfin and Zillow saying we're going to work together against
Hmm.
CoStar. And if we are going to go ahead and list your property on apartments.com, what can attract you to spend more money with us? Well, you get both listing websites. You get Redfin
Interesting.
and you get Zillow together rather than both of them trying to create these separate listing agreements with the multifamily. And so the Zillow deal essentially was $100 million that Zillow paid Redfin to get this exclusive agreement. And
Oh, wait,
then
wait, 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 wait. So
Zillow
Zillow
paid
paid
Redfin
Redfin
$100
9
million.
figures, 9
Yes,
figures,
9 figures.
and Redfin cut 450 jobs as a thank you. Again, I did the math on 450. I just assumed a fully burdened cost rate of 150 grand, which might be low. I have no idea. But
Yeah,
that's $67.5 million right there. So we're talking Redfin's up $167,000 or $167 million by
off
signing
of
this
this.
piece of paper. That doesn't suck.
Yeah, and they said it's between Redfin at least estimates it's between 18 million and 21 million in expenses to restructure this. And I assume that's
Oh,
lawyers, that's
yeah.
the fees associated with severance, all of that. But I think that this is actually good for the industry. I believe the consolidation in some of these listing websites working together is actually going to be beneficial for the industry because today the problem with rentals that I think anyone can relate to is it's very fragmented. I mean,
Yes.
even our industry, we saw there's just way too many property management softwares out there. And there's not a lot of differentiation between them. They all offer pretty much the same
Yeah.
thing, rent collection and background and credit checks. And it makes it where when there's a lot of choices, or a lot of different listing partners you have to work with, I think it just makes it harder to be in the industry. Not to mention that you also have all these tenant landlord laws that continue to go into effect, and there's always a new one. And so I actually think this is really good for the industry to see some players working together who used to be enemies. Now they're kind of frenemies from that perspective.
Do you remember Redfin's CEO? Yeah, Glenn, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Glenn Kelman. He actually was quoted, I want to say it might have been a year or two ago. He basically said, if interest rates don't come down, we're going to drink the blood of our competitors and some other crazy things like that. This is basically him executing that plan, right? Because he knows his business is very much transaction oriented. That's how Redfin
Yep.
wins. And he's doing everything he can to frankly get through 2025. So this to me is it's an expense. I don't know, discard. It got a little money from it. He's a positive 80 million, even if it cost him 20 to do this. And he has a more focused team, right? As an end result. And the other thing I think you bring up is genius. I would not have put this together. I think what's happening between Redfin and Zillow and CoStar is Redfin and Zillow are basically saying, hey, let's be frenemies. You know, we're going to be enemies on single family listings, but let's be friends on rentals, because CoStar is where all the margin in is. I forget who said this, but basically, you know, your margin is my opportunity.
Yep.
And I think this is Zillow and Redfin going, we're going to go eat margin from CoStar. That's what I think they're saying.
Yeah. And I think that, with Redfin and with Glenn, I still think the strategy is to have, to your point, a rentals presence, because don't forget they bought,
Oh,
I
for
can't
sure.
remember if it was a year or 2 years ago, but they bought rent.com.
Yep.
And with rent.com, rent.com was owned by TPG, a private equity group, but they also bought with the rent.com. It was like a whole group. They bought apartmentguide.com. They bought rentals.com. They bought rent.com. And then remember that popular website, Live Lovely, which kind of now is just a feed, but it's not really, no tenants search for their properties on there. But that was all a group together, those 4 listing websites. And so Redfin purchased that in order to get rentals into their platform.
Right.
And now they're saying, great, how do we get more of the inventory? How do we get more of the paying inventory, the multifamily? Let's go ahead and do that. And so, yeah, it's their way of saying they're going to go into that industry, but keeping in mind that they're going to have to partner to be able to do it. Because if they just try to compete against both CoStar and Zillow, they'll probably lose. But if they team up with one, they have a better shot.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And when you're in an environment where you're the CEO of a company and you're going through the last hard year, which I think 2025 is for really the entire transaction market, that's a great strategic play. I get to lower my cost basis. I get to lower my overhead. I get to get a big check. I get, a 9-figure check, 8-figure check after cost and fees. It just gives him oxygen to get through the year. I mean, that's what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
Makes total sense. And back to TPG, it's interesting you brought that up. Really what TPG was doing is they were buying offshoots of rent.com, rental.com, all of that, because they were going to create a portfolio. They didn't know who the end buyer was, but they knew they were going to sell that to somebody.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up, because, again, a right turn in our conversation, is there's a lot of property management software, as you said earlier, right? Lots of people doing the same things. I wonder when a TPG or like institution starts gobbling up small ones, then gets a big portfolio and goes to someone maybe like Redfin or Zillow and says, hey, instead of just advertising, why don't you run the operational side? What do you, I don't think that's a this year thing, but what do you think of 27, 28, where some private equity or hedge fund goes, hey, go buy all these assets and do full service? What do you think?
Yeah, I think they are. And just a side note on that rent.com one, TPG did pretty well. It was a $608 million that Redfin paid for it. I just looked it up to remember. 608 million for these listings and websites that not a lot of tenants search on. So they did pretty well on it.
They did pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, so that's already happening today. So a couple of our competitors, and these, when I say competitors, I mean the software only providers for landlords, have consolidated together. What's interesting is none of them have announced it. So even though they're all owned by the
Interesting.
same private equity company, they haven't announced it. What
Oh, so
we
it's happening
find,
already. Damn it.
yeah, it's already happening. And what's really interesting to me when I look at the strategy of it is they all have the same thing. And so what I believe happened, because none of these sale prices of how much the private equity company paid for these softwares, none of that is public. I actually don't think they got very good software
Oh
multiples.
no, I'm sure they
Be-
didn't. I'm sure their capital stack is impaired. I'm sure they bought
Yeah,
for pennies on the dollar for sure.
totally. Because I think what they have to do is say, great, we're only going to keep one of the platforms. We're going to move them all
Yeah,
onto that
we're
platform.
basically buying customer bases. We're gonna slam them together because you all do the same thing.
Exactly. Yes, and try to consolidate that together. I think what they may forget, or what they might see throughout the process, is I believe it's much more challenging, especially with landlord softwares, because if you're telling someone, and we saw this happen with one of them back in November, where a lot of their customers came to us saying,
Hmm.
"Hey, we just got notice that we need to move to this other platform. They're delaying our payments. This is super stressful.
Oh yeah.
Can we just work with you guys, because we don't want all of that stress of like our rent not in our account, we can't pay our mortgage." And so what I think is happening there is they also, private equity guys are smart. They probably thought, hey, there's going to be quite a bit of churn when we do that. But it's easier when you are a small mom and pop and you might have 4 or 5 rental properties. It's much easier to say, maybe I'll go somewhere else. If you're going to make me switch and there's a switching cost, let me try to switch somewhere else.
I think you're giving way too much credit to those private equity guys. Again, they clearly probably thought there was some churn going, but I
Yeah.
almost guarantee you, none of them own rentals. None of them have ever had to stroke
Yeah.
a check for their mortgage. They did not think about that because they're
Yeah.
basically forcing their customers to, eat a shit sandwich or look somewhere else. So
Yeah.
something I might think about it if I were you is I actually might create a incentive that says, hey, like when you hear about, platform X being acquired by, portfolio Z, hey, if you're working with platform X, come over here. We'll give you a month free or
Alternative. Better
yeah,
alternative. Yeah.
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 We're
It's
not
a
we're not going to
it,
screw you out of your rent. Blah blah blah. I would get aggressive,
exactly.
man. I'd go
Yeah.
I'd go punch somebody in the eye. See what happens.
You're hired, Zuber, to run that part.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. No, it's because I think that's happening. I think it happens all the time in the industry. I think software. The other, it's funny. The All In guys, the All In podcast.
Yeah, I love them. I
Those
love that
guys,
podcast.
they've been talking for a while about the come to Jesus moment in kind of the equity world because there's been
Mhm.
a lot of unicorns and all of that, and a lot of that money is impaired to say the least.
Mhm.
But that's going to lead to a lot of forced acquisitions and forced marriages. This is an opportunity for Hemlane to flex its muscle and just go take market share.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we've thought about that of, do we buy these when we know a deal's on the table? Do we go and say,
Dude,
private
I
equity
don't
guys
even
will
think
do
you need to.
this?
I don't think you need to buy them. I think you need to flood the airways, buy some Google ads or whatever, however you would do that, and just say, if you're on platform X, we want you to know the Hemlane's here for you. We'll take care of you. We'll
Yeah.
give you 90 days or whatever. Don't even pay the multiple. Just go take 30% of their customer base that's
Customers.
scared by
Yeah.
what's happening for
Yeah.
pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. I'm talking to marketing after this, Zuber.
You know what you just told me by that? You're like, Zuber, I already had that idea. We're already working on it. That's what you just said.
No. We didn't do it as aggressively as I think we could have. We did a bit, but not as aggressively as I think we could have, for sure.
Dana, swing.
I
Go
know.
get it, girl. This is not piddlywinks. Go take it. Go take market share. Anyway, I digress. I don't know how that right turn happened, but that's how my brain works. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I think this Redfin announcement is a wonderful move by Glenn, the CEO, and frankly by Zillow as well. Because I think at the end of this, this is a big move that gets Redfin through 25, right? It rebuilds their cash stack.
Yep.
And it sets them up to go, CoStar's, if I'm a betting man, CoStar's margins 12 to 18 months from now are down 5 to 8%. And they're not even going to know why. They're not even going to know because CoStar guys don't look at Redfin and Zillow as competition. They're going to miss this entirely.
Yeah.
And they're going to start to go, where'd our margin go? What the heck happened? It's going to be
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, no, and I do believe that multifamily, they will start doing what we do, where we look at, well, for all of our premium listing websites where we really boost the listing. So that is to apartments.com,
Sure.
Zillow, Redfin. Every time we are looking at these and we say, well, what was the cost per not only lead? Because they're like, oh, you'll get X number of more inquiries or leads. But we say, no, what about qualified applicants?
Yeah.
Because
I
you
don't
can
want more
you
leads. I
put a
want
ton of
quality.
junk in there. You could put a lot of junk in there by like, oh, you're interested in this property. We'll give your contact information to 10 more that look just like it. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, that's not really someone who is actively interested. And so it actually helps us because we can renegotiate all those contracts. And there are certain players in the space,
Bingo.
you can guess, who overcharge a lot on those ads. And we come in and say, well, here's the data. You're not providing qualified the
Yeah.
applications. So that's
You're
what our
not
customers
communicating.
want. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun as somebody on the outside watching Hemlane really take advantage of the next 12 to 18 months. Because anytime there's chaos, there's pain, people are
yeah.
distracted, companies are looking at short-term, not long-term futures. So it's going to be fun. Dane, if somebody wanted to come in and play with it, use the free version, what do they do?
Yeah, you can go to Hemlane, HEMLANE.com. You can advertise your rental, find and place a tenant. Just mention one rental at a time because you do get 20% off your first year. You also have a 14-day free trial and there's a free plan. So plenty of options for you out there.
Yes. All I heard was free, free, free. Go get it, guys. Thanks.